Good evening, everyone. This is Barbara Demick. I'm just delighted that she's agreed to be my moderator, having been in Beijing for how many years?
7 years,
Yeah.
which makes me a baby at China coverage compared to you.
And Yadi Epstein was 12 years in Beijing, so we have some serious Chinese expertise in the room. So thank you all for being here.
Well, I was going to introduce you as somebody who's been covering China, I think it said since 1979.
Right. It happened by accident. I was on the foreign desk at UPI, and I was trying to get to South Africa or Paris. I thought those were I had no idea where I could go. So one day, I got the phone call from H.L. Stevenson saying, "Bill, we need you in Hong Kong." Edie Lederer was in Hong Kong, having been covered Vietnam for the AP. So off I went to Hong Kong, and the older journalists, Bob Crabb, Aileen Mosby, went into Beijing. Then they called Peking. They thought they were going to win their prizes for the coverage of China's rapid modernization. But nothing changed in Beijing for at least 10 years. And it was all the action was in the south, in Shenzhen and in Canton, Guangzhou. So I ended up winning an Overseas Press Club award for Best Economic Coverage in 1980, which started my long engagement with the OPC. And it's four decades. So that's what started it all.
Well, it's a good introduction.
Yes.
Because, as you note at the beginning of your book, you might be,
I was only 12 at the time.
Yeah. You might be, branded as a China-phobe.
Right.
You're quite critical of China
Right.
in this book, also critical of the United States. The New Art of War, China's deep strategy inside the United States. I thought I knew this story of what China is doing in the United States, and I didn't until I read the book, and highly recommended. I'm going to go sort of in order of what I read. A topic that's very close to the news is Chinese hacking, Russian hacking, North Korean hacking. Everybody hacks us. But it seemed that the Chinese are much more strategic in the way they hack. They don't put pixelated skulls on home pages. They don't leave fingerprints. Tell us a little bit about their hacking operations in the U.S.
Well, there are several different bodies involved in it. There's the PLA is involved in it. Unit, I think it's 61398, is located in a single building in Shanghai. They've helped penetrate the defense industry's supply base. So they know all the suppliers of widgets to the company that makes them for the Navy. So they've been very active. The Ministry of State Security is probably the largest actor. They cooperate with the PLA, but the Ministry of State Security, they seem to be the granddaddies of them all. They're the ones who were originally involved with the APT-10 in December. This is a case where Chinese hackers, this APT-10 group in Tianjin, were able to fool IBM's cloud computing system. They got past the intrusion detection systems and were able to move into IBM's system, obtain legitimate user IDs, and pose as legitimate users for a period of 4 years. This is incredible. IBM is arguably one of our nation's most sophisticated technology players, and this group in Tianjin made fools out of them by getting inside their cloud computing system and hopping onto the servers and the computers of all the companies that use IBM's cloud computing system. And they did it for 4 years. And the most amazing thing is that after the Department of Justice and the FBI broke it up, IBM told the Wall Street Journal, "We see no evidence that any of our data was compromised or any of the data of our clients." The clear and consistent Chinese pattern is that they make copies of the data they want, then they exfiltrate it through email channels and other channels. So they left no footprints. They left no.
And they didn't advertise their presence.
No, they were invisible. So the Koreans, North Koreans, of course, they were high profile. They attacked the Hollywood studios, Sony, and crashed its computers. The Chinese don't crash computers. They get inside, they infiltrate, they get what they want, and then they leave. The Russians are obviously very sophisticated. Their emphasis has been on social media, and they may be penetrating some institutions, but what the Chinese have done has been massive, consistent, systematic across banking, telecommunications, healthcare, so many different sectors of our society.
Yeah, that's something that really surprised me in the book because, you see the obvious targets, military defense contractors, but they seem to be going for, rather small subcontractors. You gave one example of a company in the Midwest, was it?
Right. So this fellow I interviewed for Chief Executive Magazine was out golfing one Saturday morning, and his boss called him, the CEO of the company called him and said, James, what's wrong with our damn systems? The CEO was working on Saturday and couldn't get his email to work. So the guy out on the golf course checked into it, and massive amounts of traffic were leaving this small company, about $100 million a year in sales. And so where was it going? It was going to Shanghai. This is the unit 61398. So they called in FireEye, the big California cybersecurity company, and they tracked what was happening. And so they caught him in the middle of trying to exfiltrate this data. So and they were able to stop them, but then the Chinese tried 3 more times to get back into the system after they'd been stopped.
But why this company? Their targets are not at all obvious.
Well, here's a U.S. Navy carrier, let's say, and then Raytheon and Lockheed are the major contractors, and then they depend on whole vast layers of this supplier, this supplier, this supplier. So the Chinese were down 4 or 5 levels into the Navy's supply chain, and they had identified a company that made a certain device they wanted to copy, so that they could know what the Navy's capabilities were, and so that they could use it for themselves. So they were stopped from getting the special sauce, but not by much. They must be in satellite space and in the submarine space. They've walked away with just tons of dual-use technology. Yeah.
And there are other targets that I found very interesting, like the Marriott Starwood program. I'm a Starwood member myself.
Was your data stolen?
Well, I don't know, but did they take my rooms at the Honolulu Sheraton?
There have been 3 major hackings. One was of the Office of Personnel Management in 2014 by a Chinese government entity. They stole more than 20 million records of U.S. government employees, social security numbers, cell phones, addresses, the whole works. Then the Marriott hack, they stole 400 million names of travelers in the Starwood division of Marriott, including passport numbers. And then the third most recent hack was Equifax. That was started by the Chinese central bank. They wanted to get the algorithms that our credit rating agencies use to evaluate people's credit worthiness. But in the process, they got 140 million names of individuals and their complete credit reports. So if you combine what these 3 hacks, they also have stolen massive amounts of health records. So New York Times has speculated, this is not my speculation, is that they've built a data lake back in Beijing where they're Americans who are of interest to them. They can look at their financial records, health records, travel records, and assemble a portrait of that particular American to see whether that American is worthy of being approached or worthy of being monitored.
So if I have enough Starwood points, I could be a target. Otherwise, forget it.
I suspect they're watching you for sure.
Yeah.